Israel, 9 million people, more startups per capita than anywhere on Earth, tech giant, military powerhouse. But rewind 3,000 years. This was just scattered tribes wandering the desert. So how did they get from there to here? The answer involves ancient kingdoms, brutal conquests, 2,000 years without a homeland, and one of history's most dramatic comebacks. This is the complete story of Israel, from Abraham to AI. The story of the Israelite people, as told in the Hebrew Bible, is an epic that spans millennia. Yet, it begins not with a grand kingdom or a conquering army, but with the intimate story of a single family. This foundational narrative is a powerful saga of migration, unwavering faith, and a divine promise that would shape the destiny of a nation. It is centered around the figures known as the patriarchs: Abraham, his son Isaac, and his grandson Jacob. These men were not kings or generals, but semi-nomadic chieftains, navigating a world filled with powerful empires and polytheistic beliefs. Their story is the bedrock upon which the identity of the Israelite people is built. According to tradition, Abraham is portrayed as a revolutionary figure, the first to embrace the radical concept of monotheism, the belief in a single, all-powerful God. In response to a divine call, Abraham is said to have embarked on a momentous journey, leaving the sophisticated urban center of Ur in Mesopotamia for a destination unknown, a place described only as a promised land. He settled in Canaan, living as a semi-nomadic chieftain, grazing his vast flocks and navigating the complex political landscape of the local Canaanite city-states. This was the beginning of the covenant, a sacred pact between Abraham's descendants and their God. The narrative continues with Jacob, who, after a mysterious struggle with a divine being, was given the name Israel, meaning he who wrestles with God. This new name would eventually encompass an entire people. Jacob had 12 sons, and their families would become the progenitors of the 12 tribes of Israel, the foundational social and political structure of the nation. The dramatic tale of Jacob's favorite son, Joseph, betrayed by his jealous brothers and sold into slavery in Egypt, marks a crucial turning point. His meteoric rise from prisoner to a position of immense power, second only to Pharaoh, sets the stage for the next major chapter in the Israelites' journey. According to the book of Exodus, the descendants of Jacob, who had initially settled in Egypt as welcome guests, had grown numerous over the centuries. A new Pharaoh, one who did not know Joseph, began to fear their numbers and potential influence. He enslaved them, subjecting them to brutal oppression and forced labor, building his great cities. It is in this crucible of suffering that a pivotal figure emerges: Moses. Raised in the Egyptian court but born a Hebrew, he is called by God from a burning bush to undertake an impossible mission: to confront the most powerful ruler on earth and lead his people out of slavery, back to the promised land of Canaan. The biblical account tells of a series of 10 devastating plagues unleashed upon Egypt, a divine assault on the Egyptian pantheon, and a demonstration of God's power. These calamities eventually broke Pharaoh's will, convincing him to release the Israelites. Their hasty departure, with no time for their bread to rise, is commemorated to this day in the festival of Passover. The Exodus is more than just an act of liberation. It is the event that forges the nation of Israel. After the miraculous escape across the Red Sea, which sealed their freedom and destroyed Pharaoh's pursuing army, the Israelites enter the vast and unforgiving Sinai wilderness. It is here, at the foot of the imposing Mount Sinai, that their relationship with God is formalized. Moses returns from the mountain with the 10 Commandments, the moral and ethical core of a new legal code, forming the covenant that binds the people to God and to each other. Yet the journey to the Promised Land was not direct. They wandered the harsh desert for 40 years, a generation-long period of testing, purification, and preparation. It was a transformative time, designed to shed the slave mentality of Egypt and teach them how to live as a free people under God's law, ready to claim their inheritance. After 40 years in the wilderness, a new generation approached Canaan, standing at the edge of the Promised Land. Under Joshua's leadership, they began settling the land. Archaeology, however, suggests a more complex, prolonged process. Once settled, the 12 tribes existed as a loose confederation. This era is known as the period of the Judges. Charismatic leaders, men and women, rising in crises, Gideon and Samson, became folk heroes. Constant threats and internal disunity bred a desire for permanent leadership. That sentiment paved the way for the demand for a king. The choice fell on Saul of Benjamin. Saul's early reign brought success. He rallied the tribes and won decisive victories. But his reign turned tragic. At Mount Gilboa, the Israelite army was routed, wounded, and facing capture. Saul took his own life. Out of the ashes of Saul's tragic reign emerged Israel's most celebrated king, David. David first gained fame for his legendary victory over the Philistine giant Goliath. He achieved this by conquering the Jebusite city of Jerusalem, establishing Jerusalem as the eternal city of David and the focal point of national worship. Upon David's death, the throne passed to his son, Solomon. Solomon's crowning achievement was the construction of the first temple. It was a physical manifestation of God's presence among his people and the focal point of their religious identity for centuries. However, this golden age came at a great cost, sowing seeds of resentment. The glorious united monarchy, at its very peak, contained the fractures that would soon tear it apart. Upon Solomon's death, Rehoboam ignored elder counsel. He answered not with compassion, but with a threat. "My father made your yoke heavy. I will make it heavier still." This harsh response ignited rebellion. The nation fractured into two rival kingdoms. The dream of a united Israel was shattered. During this period, a new and ruthless superpower was rising in Mesopotamia, the Neo-Assyrian Empire. After a series of rebellions, in 722 BCE, the Assyrian king Sargon II laid siege to the capital city of Samaria. The city fell. They deported a large portion of the Israelite population. These displaced people became known as the 10 Lost Tribes of Israel. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great conquers the region. Greek culture floods in, gymnasiums, philosophy, new gods. For traditional Jews, it's cultural warfare. In 175 BCE, Antiochus IV bans Jewish practices entirely. The Maccabee family launches a guerrilla rebellion. Against all odds, they win, achieving a brief period of independence under the Hasmonean dynasty. But in 63 BCE, the Roman general Pompey ends their independence. Enter Herod the Great, a brutal, brilliant builder who massively expands the Second Temple. After Herod, direct Roman rule brings heavy taxes and growing resentment. In 70 CE, a massive Jewish revolt is crushed. The Romans destroy the Second Temple. The final great diaspora begins. After Herod's death, the territory was reorganized into a Roman province, Judea. The presence of Roman soldiers was a constant, visible reminder of their subjugation. During this turbulent period, Jewish society was a cauldron of diverse and competing ideas. The Sadducees, the Pharisees, the Essenes, and the Zealots. And into this charged atmosphere came new prophetic and messianic figures. It was in this context that Jesus of Nazareth began his ministry in the Galilee. His message of the kingdom of God challenged both the religious authorities and the Roman power structure. His life and death, and the belief in his resurrection by his followers, would give birth to a new world religion, Christianity. The explosive mixture of oppressive rule and revolutionary fervor finally ignited in 66 CE. Rome responded with overwhelming force. After a long and terrible siege, the Roman army broke through Jerusalem's walls and, in the year 70 CE, destroyed the Second Temple. The destruction was a national trauma of unimaginable proportions, a pivotal and catastrophic event in Jewish history. A final, desperate stand at the fortress of Masada ended in tragedy 3 years later. One last, messianically inspired revolt was crushed with even greater brutality by the Emperor Hadrian. Hadrian attempted to erase Jewish identity from the land, renaming it Syria Palestina and banning Jews from Jerusalem. With the temple gone forever, Judaism underwent a profound transformation. Rabbinic Judaism was born, ensuring the survival of the Jewish people and their faith through centuries of dispersion. As the Roman Empire embraced Christianity, the land was transformed into a Christian Holy Land. This era was ended by the swift rise of a new power from the desert. In 638 CE, Muslim armies conquered Jerusalem. Muslim rulers, recognizing the sanctity of the site, built two of Islam's most holy shrines on the Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. In the 11th century, a wave of religious fervor and military ambition was unleashed from Europe, launching the First Crusade. In 1099, the Crusader army breached the walls of Jerusalem. The capture of the city was followed by a horrific slaughter. The Crusader kingdom was gradually worn down. In 1187, the Sultan Saladin decisively defeated the Crusader army and recaptured Jerusalem. In 1517, the Ottoman Empire incorporated the Holy Land into their vast empire. Suleiman the Magnificent completely rebuilt the dilapidated walls of Jerusalem. The 16th century also witnessed a remarkable spiritual flowering within the Jewish community, centered in the Galilean town of Safed. However, the vast Ottoman Empire entered a long, slow period of decline. The region had become a neglected backwater of the empire. Meanwhile, a new idea swept Europe: nationalism. For Jews facing renewed persecution, some concluded the only solution was a national one. This led to modern political Zionism. Inspired by these ideas, small groups of idealistic Jews began arriving in Palestine. They came to redeem the land through agricultural labor. World War I would shatter this old order completely. In 1917, Britain issued the pivotal Balfour Declaration, declaring support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Jewish immigration increased significantly. The Arab population watched with growing alarm, fearing displacement. Tensions erupted into violence. The rise of Nazism created desperate urgency for Jewish refugees. The Holocaust, 6 million Jews murdered, built an unparalleled moral and political case for a Jewish state. Exhausted, Britain handed the issue to the United Nations. The UN proposed partition. Jewish leaders accepted. Arab states and Palestinian leaders rejected it. On May 14, 1948, as the British mandate expired, David Ben-Gurion declared the State of Israel. After 2 millennia of dispersal, a Jewish state was reborn in its ancestral homeland. The declaration was met not with celebration, but with a full-scale invasion. The ensuing conflict was a desperate and costly struggle for survival. The war created a massive refugee crisis. The following decades were defined by a cycle of tension and war. The most dramatic conflict was the Six-Day War in 1967. Israel captured the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The capture of East Jerusalem was a moment of profound religious and historical significance. In 1973, on Yom Kippur, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack. The shock of the Yom Kippur War shattered the illusion of military invincibility and opened the door to diplomacy. This bold move paved the way for the Camp David Accords and a formal peace treaty, the first between Israel and an Arab nation. While much of Israel's modern story has been defined by conflict, there is another narrative of remarkable creativity. It evolved into a global powerhouse of high-tech innovation. Israeli society is a complex, vibrant mosaic, a fusion of cultures, traditions, and backgrounds, where ancient traditions coexist with a fast-paced modern lifestyle. The epic story of Israel is a powerful narrative of continuity and resilience. It is the story of a people's enduring connection to a particular strip of land. The language, faith, and collective memory forged in these hills survived against all odds, re-emerging in the 20th century to form a sovereign state. Yet, for all its successes, Israel's journey is far from over. The most profound challenge is the ongoing conflict with the Palestinians. Finding a just and lasting resolution is the single greatest challenge. Reflecting on this journey, we see a story unparalleled in human history. A chronicle of faith, survival, homecoming, and conflict. Israel today is vibrant, complex, and deeply contested. Its story is not finished. The final chapters are yet to be written, as its people add their own verses to this enduring epic. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found this documentary insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history. We'll see you next time.